Okay. So, yep, setting your project is really important. So to do that, you need to go up to File, Set Project, then find your project. Mine was called Floating Island Vid. That's the folder, the top folder that's containing all these, like your scenes, your source images, all those different folders. So select that top folder that's containing all that and hit Set. If you are not setting a project, it will say, hey, this is not a project that you're setting. It will be like giving you an error. So go to the correct place. That is a really important note, otherwise you might have to redo a bunch of stuff. Things will break, you'll be annoyed. Just make sure you do that step, okay? Then I would open your scene. So go to File, Open. Like that, okay? All right, so let's look at the assignment. So in this, I'll be having you do a bunch of different materials, and I want you to do them as shown in class. I want, here is a folder with some files that you'll need from that. There are notes that I'll be adding as I go into the 3D notes. I have already put some, but I'll add some more. Just some reminders, all the stuff I'll go over in class. We'll be creating a sky dome light and applying an EXR for the lighting plus a directional light. That's a requirement. I'll show you all that. And these are the materials I want you to make. If we look at our island, they had all these spheres on it. They're glass there, but I want them to be all different kinds of materials. That's the reason I put them in there, so that you get an understanding how to do these different kinds of textures, materials, all that kind of stuff. Okay, any questions about that? This will be due end like midnight on, I put a midnight on Monday. But I'll adjust if it seems like it's too tight of a schedule. All right, so in there I put in this reference of different materials. Good artists always look at reference. Even if you think that you know exactly how something is, always do a little bit of searching to figure out what that material looks like, okay? So always look for reference. That's a key to making good art. All right, so let's bring up my, let me just hide this while we are going over lighting. So by default, our Maya will apply different materials to our scene by default, because you need a material on here even in the viewport. If you go to Attribute Editor, you'll notice that there's these 3 tabs. You have your translate stuff, you have your shape node, which has a bunch of like controls over the look of it, the model, and how it's smoothing, all that kind of stuff. And then there's also this button here called Lambert. Lambert is like an old material, way back when, like with the first 3D films. That's an old like material setup. The materials that we want to be using are standard surface, but I'll go into that more later. First, we need lighting. Lighting in Maya is done through Arnold. Arnold is a renderer. A renderer is basically a simulation of light going on your object, and you can do that in different ways. There's a lot of different renderers out there. There's a Redshift, there's RenderMan, which is Pixar's. There's a lot of different ones. The one that comes with Maya is Arnold, and you'll see the little Arnold tab up here. And you'll see the little shelf button with all these, you go to Arnold there. If you do not see this, this means the plugin isn't on. And sometimes that happens. So to get that on, I would just, probably the fastest way is just to use this search button. Just click on Plugin Manager. And click on Plugin Manager. And it's annoying that they did this way. You can't just search Arnold. You have to click M2A. And that stands for Maya to Arnold, which is really annoying that you have to memorize that. But I put that information in the 3D class notes, okay? And you just have to click loaded. That will load it for this session. And auto loaded will make it so it automatically turns on whenever you turn on Maya, or should. Sometimes there's some things that go wrong and you have to load it. So if you don't see this shelf, or this up here, also if you change the drop down here, sometimes it doesn't show Arnold. Well, does it show Arnold always? Oh, I guess it does. So you should see Arnold up here if it's on. All right. So let's throw in a light. So Arnold has these lights up here on the top left here of your shelf. These are lights that Arnold has made, and a lot of these are really good, but sometimes they let Maya's old lighting setup. You can still use Maya's original lights in your scene. The one that you would use the most often is the area light, but and that has like a box kind of look, and I can kind of show that. Just have to scale it up, move it up. And what this is, that line is where the light's coming from. So I can move this around like that, and I will, to start a render, you don't want to use these set up here. These are like starting renders. These are old kind of starting render things. You want to go up to Arnold and click render up here. Close this. And it will look something like this. And you'll notice that it's black. It's because in the light, if you click on it, you'll have all these options here. Put this over to the side. And you can bring up your exposure. So intensity for all lights is like a more fine-grained intensity of your light. Exposure is like a multiplier of your intensity. So usually I bring this up high until I start seeing stuff. You'll see that it's starting to show on the bottom, but I need to go past this. You can go past this number. So like I go to 10. Now I start to see stuff, right? And now I can slide it more. So that's what the area light is, a very soft light. It's kind of like a box light if you ever taken photography. It's a good one that if you want nice transition, softer lighting. But since we're doing an outdoor scene, I'm going to delete this light here. Since we're doing an outdoor scene, it's good to go up here to create and go to lights. And these are different options also. The one that I want you guys to use is the directional light. The directional light simulates a light that is very far away and is very intense, like a sun. So if I click that, it just pops on like that. Now let's move this up. And I can just rotate this. And it doesn't really matter the scale for this light. Some lights, it matters if you scale them up or down. And some matter if you move them up and down. See how it doesn't change if I move them up and down? Because this is a light very far in the distance and it's coming towards us. So it's parallel light rays. So that's how you get some of your lighting. So I'll just place it somewhat like that. And let's move out a little bit. So this is where, see how I'm moving around, it's moving this? This up here makes it live or render in my viewport. So if I hit play and I move this, it will move in my renderer. Or if I click that off, now it's not rendering anymore. And some things that you should be aware of. On the bottom is how long it takes to render the image fully. So right now it's taking 0 seconds. And up here is the different cameras that I can render from. So we made that render cam, so go down to there and I can click on that. And that goes to that one. And that has my image plane in it. I'll get rid of that since I don't need that. I'll just switch to this for speed's sake. All right. Beauty is in Maya, you can, or in Arnold, you can do different passes to break up the different aspects. So you can have just speck or just like shadow or just whatever, and you can composite those things together, like in another tool, kind of like After Effects, or there's other programs that you can combine and then adjust so you get really fine detail. We won't get into that in this class, that's more next class. So say we have this. Say you want to compare your renders, you can click this button here on the bottom, this little snapshot. Click that, and you'll notice that it saved my render over here. This is the render that I saved. Now if you want to get back, see how I moved, and now this is not changing. You can click the eye, and that's the current render that I'm on. So then I can say that. Then you can like go back in between these. A lot of times you're like comparing and seeing like what you like or adjusting the materials and fine tuning that way. You can also, it also saves the settings here. So if something goes really heavy, if you're changing a setting and you're like, oh, this render is like 3 minutes and this one's 1 minute, then you can see the comparison in time of how long things are taking. Okay? All right. So now global illumination. So global illumination show this. Global illumination is not new, but it's newer for when you'll see a sharp contrast and when the 3D films start to look better in lighting. And that is the difference between global illumination and kind of the old way that we did this. Global illumination is a simulation of light bouncing around and taking different things. So like right here, see how that green wall is that color is bouncing. So the light's coming from here, hits this green wall, bounces and takes some of that color and makes that box a little bit greener. That is called light bleeding or color bleeding. And this is a direct result of this technology. So you'll see that same thing over here. And it also makes shadows more accurate. So instead of harsh shadows, you'll get a gradation from the light bouncing around and making them a little bit lighter or darker, that kind of thing. For us, we don't really have to, before you had to add like hundreds of lights in your scene just to fake that, which automatically happens for us now. And things automatically will just look more realistic. So, a cool tool, because we have this kind of setup, we can do different things. One thing we can do is capture our environment and then bring it into as an image with high dynamic range, which means that we have, if we were to color pick like the sun, if we take a picture of the sun, it would be a really high number, more than just a value of 1. And we can generate lights from this. So I'll show you how to do that. The thing that you need to use up here is the sky dome. So if we hit create sky dome, and let's see what it looks like when we just render this. You notice now my background is all white and my scene is like all lit up and it's a little more even. We can plug in a texture in here or a image that will generate realistic lighting. And a good website to take your render or take your images from is Polyhaven, and it's free, which is awesome. So if you go to polyhaven.com, and then click HDRIs, that's high dynamic range images, you'll have all these different options in here. And you can see that there's like, and you'll notice on the bottom here, they put these little 3D balls on the bottom that show kind of the lighting that is going to be happening per material, these different materials. And what it's doing is taking this sky dome or this image and putting it on our sky dome. So the ones that I like to use are the studio lighting. And then I will pick something like this. And what Maya likes to use, you have a bunch of options here. So 4K is the size. So you can do 1K, 2K, 4K, 8K, 16K. If you're, what matters about, so this will, depending on the size of your image, it'll be slower or faster. So 1K, if it will make your renders go faster. 4K, the higher the number, the more clear your reflection. So if you have like a chrome where it's like almost a mirror, and you need to see like really clean image that is reflected back, then you would do a higher number. If you have a material that is very rough and you can't see the reflection off of it, then go with the lower number because you're not benefiting anything. For us, I would just stay with 4K. Different programs will use either HDR format or EXR. Maya likes to use EXR, so click EXR and then download. Now, does everyone remember where we put our images in our project? What? It is source images. Sorry, I didn't hear you. Source images. So that's where you should be always putting your images whenever you're working. You want to do this so that you don't have to do this every single time and your scene doesn't break when you're doing this assignment. And for the future when we're rendering everything together. So don't miss this step, please. So I put mine in class demos in floating island vid. And then see here, source images. And I'll say I did a bunch of other ones in here. I'm just going to save this one in. Looks like I already did it before. Save it. And that will save this image. Now, to plug that in, so if I go back to Maya, I need to plug that into the color. You have to click this little checkerboard thing. So click that. And that will attach a node to this color parameter. So I just need to go to File because I want to connect another texture, another file to it. So File. And then this will pop up. And we just need to go in image name or in this little folder, click that. And this should automatically take you to your source images of your project. This is a sign that maybe if it doesn't take you to the correct place, that you didn't set your project. So set your project first. So, sorry, I have all these different textures in this I need to clear away. Let's see, brown, so is brown Studio 0 to 4K. So I'm gonna hit open. You'll notice that there's a copy under here, .tx. When you start rendering, it will generate a .tx file of your textures. What .tx are is a optimized version of your texture so that your renders go fast. So don't get startled by that. There's a little bit of issues if you change your texture and need to I usually just rename my stuff so that I don't have any conflicts. But what we do is just click on that EXR, click open. And you'll notice that my image is in the background now. Uh-oh. Hold on. Did it freeze on me? Great. All right, let me do that real quick. Not responding. All right, and task. Let me run that again. Slowly. It's loading all the plugins. Okay, so you can set your project over here, so I'm going to set it there first, and that was class demos, floating island bid set. Now hit open, go to your project, your scene, see how it takes you directly to my scenes, hit open. So to create that sky dome, I just go over here to create sky dome light, click that, then click the checkerboard, click that, then click file, then click the image name, and then go to your texture, or to your sky dome or EXR. So I hit open. Now I'm gonna delete my history. Oh crap, is it freezing every time? Oh, there it goes. So delete your history. If things are freezing up, that's always the first thing you should do if ever anything is freezing. Alright, so now I have this sky dome. I can select this background. See how I'm looking around? This is basically just a big room. I can even rotate this in here, like this. Now I'm gonna render it and see what happens. Render. Alright, so now I have kind of realistic lighting, and it's taking colors and bouncing them around. So you'll notice the light is coming, there's a dominant light coming over from here. So if I wanted to, I could look over and be like, oh, that's a window. So I can go over and rotate this to get the lighting direction, your main light, in the place that you want. So you'll see that now that light's coming from the back more, and I can rotate it all the way around until I get something like that. So we need lights to do our materials, so that's why we do this at first. So I'll do something like that. All right. And I'll save that image. I'm gonna zoom up on the material, so just put a sphere just on the ground of your island. And now if I hit play here, you'll see that this has some lighting. You'll notice that it's kind of low quality. There is settings in here. If you click into the render settings, this little gear up here, you click that. You have to make sure that you're using the right renderer, so go to Arnold Renderer. And then under Arnold Renderer, the setting that will increase your quality the fastest. You got to be careful with this number because it will crash your scene or it will make your renders really slow. So you'll notice now my renders take 3 seconds instead of 0 seconds. So if I go 4, it will start getting a little bit clearer. If I try 5, it's a little bit cleaner and cleaner, like that. You'll notice that you can see the jagged parts. Remember, we have display smooth. So if I press 3, that will smooth it in my renderer too. So that way I get a nice clean silhouette and model. So it's still a little bit like dotty and everything. You can go up to this little box up here, and you'll be using imagers. Imagers are different like tools, but there's also denoisers. So you'll probably want to click on denoiser noise. These are different kinds of methods of denoising. So if you click that, turn it off and on, this will automatically get rid of any kind of noise, or it should. Looks like that got it worse. So you can also turn them off. For some reason it didn't like denoiser. Oh, there it goes, a little bit better. You can also try like OIDN. Each one of these are a different process. So some of them use like the CPU on your computer. Some of them use the graphics card on your computer. And if your computer has a really good graphics card, then I would use the one that uses that. See how the OIDN is a lot clearer now? So it's something like that. Okay, so I have that sphere. Now let's add a material to it. The tool or the section that is where you're going to be editing your materials is the hypershade. And that's up here by where those render settings were. So it's the sphere, the blue sphere. If you click that, these are all the sphere, or watch out, it kind of pops into your scene there. This will contain all the materials of your scene that are currently in your scene up here. So we have a bunch of these that we just automatically made when there's usually like standard ones that come in right away. And then as you're creating your model, sometimes they pop up. So you'll see over here, these are all different materials on the left here. And the one that we should be using is the standard surface. So that's the one they suggest that has like the latest, newest, kind of greatest stuff. So we click that, that's the most modern material in here. So I'm going to click that, and it will create this material. This right here is your material with all the settings. So I'm going to select my model, the sphere, and right click it, the top of it, and it will say assign material to viewport selection. That's one way you can apply it. I would name this. If you click on it, this will populate all the settings of your material. And I'll name this, let's do chrome. And to make things clear, I usually put MTL in capitals at the very end for material. You can create your material like that, but there's another way that you can apply it. So let me bring that up. You can middle mouse drag the top and drop it in like that. That's another way you can apply it. Another way is to right click your model, and you can go down to assign existing material, and you'll notice there's Chrome MTL there. You can apply it that way. So there's a few ways you can apply it. So let's look at that render. So by default, it looks like this. It's a little bit shinier than the Lambert. So I'm going to click that off, and I'll save that image. I'll go to Chrome. I can even select this, and that will be in my list of my attribute editor. So now I have chrome MTL over here. So I can just put that over here. So you have your base, this is like your color. So I can just change my color like that, and you'll see that it's bouncing around, the light's bouncing around there. So you can easily change it like that. You can use the slider. The one that you'll probably, so one of the materials is chrome that I want you to do. And that is under metalness. So metalness is a parameter that you just need to bring all the way to 1. And you'll notice that it's a little bit rough, or it's a little bit foggy as you look at it. Usually materials are either all the way metal or all the way not metal. So you usually don't, in real life, don't have like a 0.5 metalness. So unless you're doing something a little more fantastical or not realistic, then I would always set this to 1 or 0. Then you have a specular section. And where you get a lot of your like detail work and where a lot of your material is coming is the roughness. Roughness of 1 is a perfectly rough thing. See how it just turned it all the way. See how it goes down and down and down until it's 0 is 0 roughness is perfectly shiny. It doesn't have any kind of, what roughness is micro bumps on your object. So if I set that to 0, it's perfectly shiny, it reflects everything. So that's how you get a chrome. So that's a pretty easy one, right? All right, so let's create another one. Let's go at this one. So another way you can create a material, if you right-click it, and you can go down to Assign Favorite Material. There is one called Standard Surface up here, and that will create the material like that. So there's a couple ways you can do it, and you'll notice that now that material is popped up over here. And then this one, let's look at what our options are. What's the next one? Plastic shiny, plastic rough, clear coat. So plastic shiny, other one's pretty easy. And that's where you would look at your reference and be like, oh, okay, I have something like this. It's a plastic shiny. That by default is almost a plastic shiny. But it probably needs to be a little shinier. So bring down the shininess. Then I can also play with the color, like a red. I could even color pick if I click that and then go over, so I can get that exact kind of thing. And then you'll see you're always looking at the highlight and you're finding that sweet spot where you're kind of getting the spread. You'll see how it's not a perfect circle, there's a little bit of a fade, gradation. So you're looking at that detail and trying to add that. So there's plastic shiny. Rubber is just a rough version of that, so like that. So I don't need to do that, you guys understand that. The next thing is clear coat car paint. So let's do that. Let's go over here. We can do that same thing. Make sure you name these. This was plastic MTL. Probably should start with the lowercase p for doing Camel Clark. And then, or not Camel Clark, Camel Case. So I'm going to right click this and do that same thing, assign favorite material, standard surface. This one is car paint. That, you can look over here. And what car paint is it's painted, and sometimes they have like these metal flakes, and then there's also a surface above. I'm going to go over the parameter, just the basic material parameters here. But the way that you do that, I look at my render. So it moved to my camera. There's also another way you can render things that we can try to use. So if I go over here on the top left, there's this A. What this does is it makes my viewport a renderer. But it's a little bit annoying because it puts this grid over it. you can go over to Show, Viewport, and then turn off Selection Highlighting. And that will turn that off. So I can select it and also see my material. Now I just need to go, so you kind of have to look at this. So we have a broad highlight. So that would be a roughness, probably like this. I'm going to change my color to like a red. Color pick it. Add that. And then it has this really tight highlight from the clear coat that goes over the object. And there is a parameter called coat, so that's what we're going to be using. So we're going to hit coat down here. The weight is, you can bring up the intensity of that. So if I bring that up, and now I have two highlights basically. So I can bring this down, that. Now I have a really strong highlight and an also broader highlight that is taking from underneath. So now you can play with each one of these to get exactly what you want. You can have a really broad, a lot broader thing. You can bring down the color to get closer to your reference. So that would be kind of like a car paint without the flakes in it. Okay, and now we can move around. Let's go to the next one. Click that, press F so it focuses on it. Let's look at the next thing. Glass. So let's look at glass. These other ones, I'm not sure we'll get through today. So glass uses another parameter. So glass and displacement, which we're not going to go over today, are the two things that really slow down your renderer, that make your renders a lot slower. Glass uses a parameter called transmission. But first we need to add that material to it. So I'm going to right click it, assign favorite material, standard surface. I'm going to name this glass, glass clear, MTL. And I'm going to go down to transmission. Now if I bring this up, you'll notice that it's creating this kind of frosted glass. And this is one of the things. What do you guys guess is the thing that's causing it to be frosted? Roughness. Good guess. So if I increase this, I get a more frosted glass, and that's one of the materials. Okay? So you could just move that, or the other thing to make this not frosted is to bring this down to 0. Now I have a clear glass. So that one's pretty easy. But this will slow down your render. So I might need to add more material, so I'll go to this one. So you guys understand transmission. Okay. Let's see. I think the ones that we have, so we'll start with skin. So the next parameter, I guess the third thing that really slows down your thing, so it's transmission, displacement, and subsurface. Subsurface, let's search up here. Subsurface scattering, skin, is it's when a light goes into the object. See how that goes into the object and bounces around and makes it glow a little. You see this in different materials like candles or skin or anything like that. If you don't have this, it makes your skin look a little like flat. So that's not a great example, but you'll see that that's really subsurface off and that's subsurface on. And it gives this nice like glow to the skin. If you don't have this, your stuff looks pretty, it almost looks clay-like, and it doesn't look lively. So And this is an example. See how the light goes through the ear? You'll see this a lot in areas that are thinner because light can go through it easier. But it also makes your shadows softer, that kind of thing. And it has a slight glow or rim around your shadows. So, let's look at that. Press 3 on that so it's smooth. I'm going to assign that material. So right click, assign favorite material, standard surface. I'll name this skin, MTL. And this uses, if you go all the way down to subsurface, click that. And we need to bring up the weight of 1. It almost, just doing that kind of looks like a really transparent kind of wax, right? Now if I just change these settings here, so color, I'll change that to like a skin color. Go over here. Let's color pick that. And a lot of the detail, I'll show you how to do that next class, but that is using bump. We can put a material on that, but we'll need to change this. This also is a good thing. We can change this to like a blood kind of color. So that would be the color that it's seen through. And right now the intensity is too strong. You'll see it's kind of that this pink color is coming from the internals and it's making it more red. So the scale, I'll bring this down because that's probably too heavy of effect. And you can even bring down the weight of this until you get about the amount that you want. And this also depends on what you're kind of going for. If you're going for the middle, if you're going for like the middle of my head versus my ear, it would have more subsurface on the ear, so that weight or that scale would go up. And then if it was in the middle of like my head, which has like a skull in it, which light can't go all the way through, then that would change the effect of the subsurface. So you can just play with these settings till you get something you want. Maybe it needs to be a little darker. And then this highlight is different, so I need to change that. Like if you're going for a more sweaty look, like that, then that would be under roughness. So I bring that highlight down. Also, if it's sweat actually, then that would be another material on top of another material, because that would be the wetness of your sweat, and that would be done with clear coat. So I could bring up my roughness, if that's what you want, and then say the wetness is coming from the clear coat. So you get like that double highlight. Okay? Alright, so that is kind of the main materials settings. I'm going to go over the other ones, the future. Try to get this far, because we're going to go to the other things outside of class, okay? Yeah?
It's with the all values.
Okay. Alright, I'll put this video on here. Sorry, it froze on us. But next class we're going to go over how to implement textures in there to get different details. And we'll go over bump. We're going to go over emission, which is like glowing things. But I'll just save this and you guys can do that outside of class.